Huntsville? How the fuck did I get to Huntsville? Do what? Improv and see what we're gonna do today. But first, I've got to get whatever the hell this is off of my ear. Your valving has to match your springs. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's not going to work. Just personally, if you're going to go into it, may as well get it all done. Let me go ahead and just tell you the pricing right now before you get bored with my talking and switch off. The cost is less than $1,000, right? That is new springs and revalved. But here's why it cost me less than $1,000. It's because the bike is new. Still, it had this thing had right at 1,000 miles on it. You know, barely broken in. So he didn't have to even remove the inner tubes, the fork tubes from the outer. He didn't have to split the tubes, right? So I didn't have to get new seals or whatever else is, you know, seals and gaskets and all that good stuff that, you know, you have to do. So the labor was less, the parts were less. All I needed was the valve stacks, the springs, and the oil. There is one thing that he did, and this is by far the most important, probably the most important piece of Tenere suspension that you need to ask for if you are new to suspension and you want to get your suspension done. In the front forks, oh man, this is getting real deep, okay? So if you don't follow me, then you're either gonna have to do some research or you can ask me a question and I will try to point you in the right direction. Okay, so if you've ever ridden a dirt bike, you know about high-speed compression and your high-speed settings, and that your high-speed compression settings are, they matter. It matters a lot, okay? These front forks on the Tenere have what's called a flapper valve, right? Instead of a mid valve. So in your shock, you have your high-speed compression that you can tune, right? Well, in front forks, you don't have, and high-speed compression, what that is it's whenever you're compressed, it rides either higher or lower depending on how okay, damn, where you're riding in the stroke, right? So if you got your high-speed compression dialed way back, you're going to be squatting. So basically you're going to be doing a lot of sand riding, and that's where you're going to be riding. But if you dial it up, your same settings on your compression and rebound, you can still affect on how the bike rides whenever it's in the stroke, whenever it's in compression. So that's the high speed in a nutshell, your high speed settings. The flapper valves that come stock in the Tenere is the equivalent of a mid valve, but they just let fluid move through it in a certain way, okay? So what he did was he actually took the flapper valve out and put a mid valve in there, which is what dirt bikes have. That way your suspension up front isn't near as twitchy, I guess you could say. Yeah, it helps hold it in the stroke a little better. Oh man, the important thing that you must ask for whenever you get your front suspension done for the Tenere is ask for a mid valve to be put in. Oh, I went down the wrong damn street. I turned too soon. I could have sworn that I've gone down this road before. We got the K-Tech springs for the forks and the shock. And the valving, what I learned about the valve shims that are in the Tenere, I don't know what they are made of, but they're not made of any metal. They look almost polymer looking, like a blue, I don't know, they just look funny. So they're not very thick. It doesn't allow for really precise metering of the oil. You know, they can flex. They can flex and move, you know, very minutely, but you know, it's a budget suspension that comes on the Tenere. So he put the valving to match the springs and what I told him how I was gonna use this bike. So yeah, unless you just have the money to chunk at Rally Raid suspension, Touratech suspension, Olin suspension, then yeah, that's major overkill. But here's the other issue that I have with buying that type of suspension. That suspension, even though you're getting some badass brand name suspension and components, it is still not going to fit your riding. So you can adjust the heck out of it, but it's still not gonna be for you, because most of that suspension are built for riders who are very good or gonna be riding very fast, where you just take your stock suspension, don't lie to your suspension guy, tell him exactly how you ride, because if you exaggerate how you ride, then your suspension isn't going to, it's just not going to work for you. I don't mean to say don't lie, just don't exaggerate yourself either above or below your riding capabilities. You know, you need to let the suspension expert know, you know, hey, this is how I ride, this is what I'm going to use it for. In my case, I told him, I said, look, oh, spike, oh, that's not a spike, but I told him, I said, look, I might doing like a little hair scramble on this, you know, I might want to do a hair scramble, but I'm definitely going to be on the trails with it. and then this is when I made it difficult for him. I told him, okay, so also I want to take this on a BDR, which means long trips. So that somewhat threw a monkey wrench into the deal. With that being said, he built it to what I wanted. Like whenever I get on the road and go for a long cruise on this thing, all I have to do is dial it out 3, maybe 4 clicks, and the suspension will be, the suspension will be more plush. A little bit more plush. So, because the springs are still kind of stiff. Whenever you buy the components, like the heavy duty springs, and you just change the springs out on your Tenere, you're just going to get a bouncy ride. That's all you're going to get, because the valving is not going to match your springs. Your valving has to match your springs. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm not saying it's not going to work. Just personally, if you're going to go into it, may as well get it all done. So much more to suspension than, good grief, I have learned a lot in the past 3 years. Like whenever I first got into dirt bikes, I was like, man, this is ridiculous. It's like, how the hell am I supposed to know if something's tight or something's loose or whatever? And then, you know, after just messing with it, I realized, okay, so that's what they're talking about. Okay, so I'm gonna go across the street, make a left, and go up a little ways and make a right. So okay, after I got my suspension done, I did it because I always heard people like me preaching about, oh, suspension, suspension, suspension. That needs to be the first thing you do is suspension. I'm like, fine. Which it wasn't the first thing I did. First thing I did was I had to learn how to ride. But, but what I did not realize is how much, if I would have had the oh, there's a pigs, and I didn't bring my pistol. I would shoot a pig. I definitely would shoot a fucking pig. Oh, sorry. I'm getting excited. I would shoot a pig and strap it to the back of this bike. I would do that with no doubt. It would have helped me learn how to ride a lot sooner. But yeah, once I did get my suspension, it was like night and day difference. For all of you new guys, I've only been riding off-road and dirt bikes since 2020. I'm not that experienced. So if you've seen my dirt bike videos, which there's a whole playlist called Dirt, that's my dirt bike. You can actually, if you really are brave, you can actually go and see my first, it was like November, December 2019 when I got my first dirt bike. Yeah, I wound up in the woods off trail. Holy shit! More than I did. I hated it. I did not like my dirt bike that I got. I got too much dirt bike for my first dirt bike, and the suspension wasn't set up for me. So suspension is just very important to learning how to ride. It can definitely speed up your learning process. It really can. It sped mine up without a doubt. Well, that and a couple classes here and there, and watching people and constantly learning. Yeah, that's well, constantly practicing. Fucking speed up from 65 to 80. I mean, what the fuck? Don't you just love when motherfuckers speed up whenever you try to pass them? But did you see how smooth the bike was when I went to pass? Yeah, I wouldn't have done that with the factory suspension. Nope. Oh, it smells so good. You see that guy that sped up? Whenever I went to pass, he's not even behind me, close, remotely close. Oh, damn. You just assholes. Just assholes, man.
Waiting for, I think we're ready to ride.